But Randy Orton, the Usos, they were in the news this week, as well as The Undertaker. Now, this one was really interesting as well. Now, I'm not even going to begin to speculate that The Undertaker is headed to AEW. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people saying that. They're going to be posting the Cody Rhodes gif with him, pointing to his ear, indicating that he was headed or interested in going to AEW. I'm not saying that for a second, because obviously he's not fucking going to All Elite Wrestling, The Undertaker, that is. What's Mark Calloway doing in the All Elite Zone? Like the old Impact Zone memes from years ago. Anyway, The Undertaker, though, this is interesting to know. Now, this might be reading a little too much into certain things, but The Undertaker is indeed on social media. Why? I have no idea. The guy is at an Instagram, apparently for a long time now, like at least for maybe a few months, if not a year. It was endorsed by his wife, Michelle McCool, so it wasn't a fake. As if that wasn't enough, he also created a Twitter for himself not too long ago, and has since been posting pretty regularly on the Twitter machine. So again, if you thought it was a fake account or it was being run by someone else, it very well might be run by like his wife or something. But then why now and not years ago? So I feel like it is the real deal, and Undertaker knows that he is on his way out of, as a full-time performer, he's on his way out of WWE, or will be winding down his in-ring career, and I mean for good too. I'm not talking like a part-timer or an occasional one-off attraction. I'm talking like he's done wrestling for good, which we all thought was the case 2 years ago, WrestleMania 33, and years before that at WrestleMania 30, and at this WrestleMania, and that WrestleMania, and this WrestleMania. I never bought that for a second. WrestleMania 33 really felt like the end, but they brought him back anyway the following year to have him squash John Cena at fucking WrestleMania. The Undertaker is a very weird case, because we'll hear these reports about like, oh, he's going to be a lot more active moving forward. Like he was. He's been pretty active for a guy that rarely shows up. He's been pretty active in the last year since he returned at WrestleMania 34. He faced Cena that night, beat him in like 2 minutes, wrestled at the Greatest Royal Rumble pay-per-view to face and beat Rusev in a casket match. He wrestled at an MSG house show in July. He then wrestled the Super Showdown event, beating Triple H, or losing to Triple H, rather, and then losing to him again against, with the whole DX Brothers of Destruction reunion at Crown Jewel in November. That's like 4 or 5 matches right there. Way more matches with The Undertaker than I ever anticipated him having in 2018. So to go from 100 to 0 and not wrestling at all at WrestleMania, which would be the first since WrestleMania 2000, is a pretty big stretch. And it's not like he even wrestled, he wrestled his last match, he's done, it looks like he's done with wrestling, whatever. He left off on a pretty uneventful note at Crown Jewel when he lost alongside Kane in a match that sucked, aside from Shawn Michaels coming back to the ring, which in retrospect was a complete waste. I was thinking about that the other day. What a waste it was to bring back Michaels in the ring. Now, I know it's his decision. I'm sure he made a lot of money off that deal to come back for one more match from the Saudis, but Jesus Christ, purely from a storyline standpoint and as a fan, which I know doesn't really matter much at all, but the fact that Michaels would throw away such a great retirement at WrestleMania 26, which people can still argue, it'll live forever regardless of whether he came back or not. We will forever remember his final match being at that god-awful abomination of an event, Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia, Brothers of Destruction versus DX, which came 20 years too late and was absolutely atrocious. That match sucked. But yeah, when it comes to The Undertaker, I can't imagine that would be his last match either. That seemed to be the end for almost all of those performers, because Michaels has shown no signs of coming back to the ring. He actually did the commentary for the most recent Halftime Heat show for the NXT match. He's been working very closely with the NXT talent over the last year or two. It doesn't look like he's on his way back to the ring, and if he was, I feel like we would have seen him on Raw or SmackDown by now. Him and AJ would have been amazing, but I think that was purely speculation or fantasy booking. I feel like he should have wrestled more matches after that atrocious tag team match back at Crown Jewel, but there's still time for him to get back in the ring. I just don't see it happening. But when it comes to Taker, him as well, Triple H got hurt in that match. He hasn't wrestled since. It was actually reported on Tuesday, that he may not be cleared for WrestleMania, with him missing his first Mania since 23 back in 2007, so a dozen years ago. And Triple H, I think that might have been the only WrestleMania he's ever missed. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's wrestled every other WrestleMania beyond that one. I think he has the most WrestleMania appearances, or matches wrestled rather, aside from just The Undertaker, which is pretty impressive. But anyway, Triple H hasn't wrestled since. His match with Batista might be in doubt, and I don't think it's happening at this point. I mean, he could always return in time, but they would have to start building the match fairly soon. WrestleMania is in 2 months from today, so they don't really have that much time left. But yeah, they have Triple H still out. Kane has not wrestled the match since, as far as I understand. He's doing the whole mayor thing for Knoxville, Tennessee, which is great. Taker, I feel like, will wrestle at WrestleMania. I have heard from... having read reports and whatnot, and a lot of this could be bullshit, but Undertaker wrestling at Mania this year is not a top priority at all. It's usually around this year every year. Not that he returns. Sometimes he doesn't come back until like February or March. He never came back at all last year in the build-up to WrestleMania until Mania itself, which I thought was dumb because they did the whole thing a few years before that with WrestleMania 31. Anyway, with Taker, not that we just see him return around this time every year, which is, around this time, around like January, February, even early March. It's that we at least hear rumblings of any potential matches we could see with him at WrestleMania. Even last year around this time, it was rumored that him and John Cena was in the cards for WrestleMania. And the build was very unorthodox, and it never happened until it was confirmed that night for the WrestleMania card, which was bizarre. Very strange marketing tool there, but anyway. With Undertaker, usually we hear around this time of year what match they're planning to do with the guy at WrestleMania. We've heard nothing. The same goes for the Hall of Fame. I've heard nothing about the Hall of Fame. I saw some spoilers online somewhere. I didn't read them. I mean, obviously they're doing a Hall of Fame, but it's not a very prominent priority this year. So if it seems like they're just phoning it in, then don't be surprised, just because they have yet to announce the on-sale ticket date for ticket sales for the event, which is, again, cutting it a little close. Into the Hall of Fame's not for another 2 months, but I thought that was a little strange. But anyway, with Taker, I've heard no rumblings whatsoever of any potential matches he could have at WrestleMania. I've heard some people say, like fans, like, oh, he could face John Cena again, which would be a fucking waste. The first match was a waste. There's no need to do it again. What, for Cena to win and then for Taker to retire? Like, that's stupid. Finn Balor is a possibility. I mean, possibly. That's just grasping at straws, I know, but if you want to have him up against a current talent, why not Finn Balor? AJ and Taker was rumored at one point a few years ago. That never ended up happening. I think that was rumored to be for the WWE Championship, not at Mania itself, which would have been cool, but rather on the build-up to WrestleMania, like at the Rumble or something like that. That would have been nice. And if anyone can get a great match out of Taker at this stage of their career, it would be AJ Styles. And it would be a pretty prominent match for him. Now, I don't know how you get from point A to point B with AJ and Taker. But that's one match you could do. Honestly, it's probably the most appealing match I could imagine they could do if it's not Taker versus the Demon, Finn Balor. But that's about it. Like, him and Braun does not interest me at all. I've heard McIntyre maybe because he's been targeting legends in recent months, like with Kurt Angle and John Cena. I think McIntyre and Cena is more likely for Mania than McIntyre and Taker is. And even that match, If McIntyre was to win, great, but like Taker losing 3 at 3 different WrestleManias after going undefeated for over 20 years, to me feels like a fucking waste. Why even bother? Like, McIntyre would gain nothing from beating Undertaker because the guy is so broken down and is such a fucking loser at this point. He's not a loser, but... And whenever I say loser, by the way, of course I mean from a storyline standpoint. Taker lost the last 2 matches he had. That doesn't make him a loser, but I would assume that he's going to win the next match that he has. And he should not be beating Drew McIntyre. It's a fucking joke. So, again, I'm not sure what you do with Taker at WrestleMania. Do you do Taker and Batista again? I'm sure Batista would love to face The Undertaker. He said a couple years ago, oh, would love to face The Undertaker, John Cena, or Triple H at WrestleMania. It's like, dude, we've already seen all those matches with you at WrestleMania before. Why would we want to see those again? Him and Triple H makes sense because they kind of left off on that note when Batista left. He left the company for the last time back in 2014. That would make sense. Him and Cena does nothing for me. Him and Taker does nothing for me. So I hope not. But honestly, at this point, Taker should just sit this one out. I do not think WrestleMania 34 even needs him. Because if it's not Balor, and it's not AJ, and they don't do the Cena rematch, which I think would be a mistake, then what else do you do with the guy that would be a logical addition to the card with someone that's not already busy with someone else on the grandest stage in them all? That's my question. So, if you guys have any ideas, please let me know, but I think Taker sitting this one out might be their best bet for 2019's WrestleMania.